my system one.
Alright, so this is the Stanley Parable. As you saw at the beginning there, I got an achievement, welcome back. That is basically, you quit the game and come back. This is the second time I have turned on the game. That's because I did everything I really wanted to do in the game the first time I turned it on. Now, interestingly enough, this is a game that is probably best experienced not knowing anything about it. That's only because there's basically a lot of twists and stuff you don't expect to have happen in this game. But at the same time, I wouldn't recommend you buy something sight unseen. So I am going to at least introduce you to the game a bit, just so you understand what's going on here. So this will be a pretty short review. Basically, the Stanley Parable is a first-person, you could call it a walking simulator, but actually there's more to it than that. Because, yes, the only thing you can do is move around in first person. But there is no... The reason I wouldn't say it's just a straight walking simulator is because that's sort of a derogatory term used to describe a game where there is no win or lose. You just kind of keep playing until you eventually win. In this case, that is not how this game works. And the reason for that is because you can, I wouldn't say fail. There is no death per se, but there are many different ways to end the game. So whether you won or not,
this is the story of a man named Stanley.
I'm gonna go turn down the
Stanley
TV
worked
volume
for a
here.
company in a big building where
But
he was employee number 427.
This will give you a little bit of an introduction to the world of
number
the game.
job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427
That's a pretty weird
did
job.
every day,
He literally sits there and just
every
pushes
month
buttons
of
as
every
told.
year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job.
Basically, he's got a very monotonous job, which is
And then one
kind
day,
of interesting.
something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions.
all of
or
a sudden
meeting,
he doesn't have
or
any
even
instructions.
say hi.
And there's nobody
Never
else
in all
at their
his
desk.
years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from
There we
his
go.
desk
Now we have
and
control.
stepped out of his office.
So, as you can see, this is like a first-person game, and you don't have much to do unless you come up on something. As we go through this area here, you
All
can
of
see
his co-workers were gone.
the narrator's going to
What did it
keep
mean?
going.
Stanley decided
It's kind
to
of
go to
the
meeting room.
main
Perhaps
appeal of
he
this
had
game,
simply
actually,
missed
is
a memo.
the narrator.
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
So there's very few things you can interact with. Like I can turn that off, but I can't turn it back on. And I can't really see out the window. It's pretty limited scope as far as the environment is. It's going to be going through the office here. Now there is sort of the mystery of where are all the coworkers. I can tell you there is no
When
answer.
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
And now, here is the main part of the game, is that the narrator will often narrate what the player should do. So he just said that Stanley, goes through the door on the left. But, let's say I don't want to do that.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
So now we're going on a different path, and the narrator sort of changed the story to match what we did. Here's the lounge.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
All right, and now we can move on.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
I could... The beauty of this game is that you really do have a choice. You can keep going forward, or as the narrator said, he actually recommended I take the door on my left.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Now that actually is the hallway that reconnects back to where if I had taken the door on the left in the beginning, that reconnects me back on the path. And I could also take this alternate path if I wanted, and the narrator would adjust the story. But let's go ahead and take the path we're supposed to. Whoops, I got turned around there. Here's the conference room.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
So this game definitely has a sense of humor. As you can see, as these slides are all pretty funny. Use slides to assure employees that everything is okay. Make sure your slide has a slick blue graphic in the header. Stuff like this. This is just comedy kind of stuff about office work life, you could say. Number of slides on this slide. Slides, charts and slides. Yeah, there's a bunch of notes here you can read if you just look at them. They're all pretty funny. And yeah, I am not going to show you any of the endings, but there are plenty of funny things in the game.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Or I could just sit in here if I wanted. But yeah, as you go through the game, there are basically a bunch of optional paths, and the story will change based on what you do. You can follow the narrator all the way to the end as the game, I guess, would intend you to do, at least on the first try. But then, as you get curious to like try every other path, there are a bunch of different outcomes that can occur. Some get pretty crazy, some not so much. I guess even the real true ending of following the narrator through the what he wants you to do, that's also kind of a weird ending. I mean, all the endings in this game are kind of interesting, at least. But as I could easily say, the game is pretty short. Like, there's an achievement for beating it within like 4 minutes or so. And let's go ahead and just do a quick restart just to talk about it a little bit more. So, ooh, now this is also different. I started the game up and it's different.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
There is a blue... You may hear it. Now there's the two doors. The two doors that you start the game on the first choice. It's very interesting because I was going to do something else. Let me look ahead at the achievements here. So I didn't get all the achievements. I just didn't bother because the 3 I haven't gotten are don't play the game for 5 years, which starts, the counter starts as soon as you close the game again. So after ending this recording, I'll have to wait 5 years in order to get this achievement. Unachievable, it's impossible to get this achievement. No clue how to get that unless you look up a guide. And then commitment, play the Stanley Parable for the entire duration of a Tuesday. You have to leave the game running for a whole 24 hours. Unless there's like another way to cheese that to get it. A lot of the achievements are really... They are not things you would probably normally do in the game. They are really out of your way things to do, which kind of speaks on achievements themselves. They're kind of ridiculous in a way. Like, here's just beat the game. You can't jump. I don't remember what that one was. Speedrun, yeah. Beat the game in 4 minutes, 22 seconds. Welcome back. Quit the game and start the game again. That's pretty... It's so easy to do. It's just to get you to play the game. Just turn it off and turn it back on. You can do that once you first get the game, even. There's just an achievement one. This is an achievement. I don't even know what that was. 8, that's another weird one you have to know what to do to get. I mean, you're not really just going to get that. 430. Click on door 430 5 times. Let's begin the game again. Because I didn't want to get that... oh my gosh. I don't want this blue room starting. Give me the normal one. There we go. Click door 430 it was?
Wind blew outside and perhaps rain started. And if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather.
Huh. Yeah, so the narrator, even though I just started the game again, he would normally say the same thing again and again, but that was a little different. So every time you restart the game, there can be little things that are different about the environment and stuff. And if I click on this door handle... Is this the right one? 430. I wonder if it doesn't let you do it after you have the achievement. So what happens normally is that you click on the door handle 5 times and the narrator points you out and says, what, you're trying to get an achievement? No way, we're going to do something harder than just click on the doorknob 5 times. And then it goes from there. So it's very interesting how the narrator like talks to you without you talking at all in the game per se. Like there's some stuff right there. I just clicked on that computer. Turn this one off. Let's go ahead and close these doors.
Oh, and I guess this is where Stanley felt he needed to be right now, in this little hallway. Here, with no distractions, to study room 417. Not to actually enter it. No. That would be far too forward. Stanley wanted to know it from the outside. To see it not just with his eyes, but with his heart. He would know room 417 as no man or woman had ever known an office before. That ladder over there. Oh, and that little picture of a horizon or something. It's all just a never-ending parade of joy for Stanley.
So yeah, the narrator, he does have his snarky moments. You can't go into a lot of the side rooms. There are still limited places you can go to.
Ah, no, apparently not. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
And there are a handful of interesting endings. It's really kind of unfortunate that the achievements aren't tied to which endings you get.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office.
I think it would be more
hoping he
interesting
might
if
find
there was an
answer there.
achievement for at least seeing a bunch of different endings. But again, this game is kind of pointing out achievements as being ridiculous. And there are some of the endings actually are tied to you get into this weird situation that's hard to get into in the first place, and then you have a choice of one or the other of a thing, and then there's this one achievement where there's this
Stanley
one
just
ending.
stood there doing nothing at all. He seems to think I have nothing better to do with my time than to sit around and describe every fascinating little detail of his inability to do anything. This is why Stanley and I are on such good terms.
There's this ending where you can choose something or the other, and then the narrator talks about it, and then the narrator is like, well, I wonder if Stanley had taken the other choice, how things would have been different, if there would have been anything different. Like, what if this is the same narration that would have occurred regardless of which choice you made? And maybe Stanley will even retry to do this again, to take the other choice, just to see if it's different. So the game kind of speaks towards choices in games, whether the player realizes what they're doing has an effect or not. So this game is like interesting in a theoretical kind of way, like just talking about games themselves. So it's a good, I guess, conversation piece, the game itself. But the game, again, I said it's very short, and the replay value is kind of limited to seeing as many different endings as you want to see.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had
And can I see how many hours I've played on here already? So I've already played this game 3 hours. The store page, what's the normal price of this game? Because I played the game for 3 hours tops and felt like I'd gotten everything out of it that I wanted to get out of it. And then the game itself is, what, $15? That doesn't really seem like a good value proposition, especially for a game that's, I mean, it's up to you, of course, depending on how you value your money. How much is $15 worth to you? Again, this is an interesting game, but it's not so much an engaging game per se, because once you play through it a few times and get a few different endings, you can pretty much say you're done with it and then never come back to it. It's kind of disposable in that way, but at least you can talk about games themselves around this game if you've played it. And of course it does have a demo, which does have a little bit of whatever to it. So you play the demo, you can get an idea of what this is like. And if you want more of the demo, then get the game. Maybe on sale like I did. I guess that's pretty much all there is to say about it without giving away secrets or spoiling endings, because I can tell you don't meet any other people in this game, although you do hear the voices of other people. I can say that, besides the narrator. I don't want to give you any context for what that would be, though. And then, yeah, the achievements are weird. There are guides to how to get achievements, and really the most useful guides are seeing different endings, because the different endings are what's interesting, not so much getting the achievements. And getting the different endings isn't even tied to an achievement, so you don't feel like you're really doing anything. You can just see however many endings you feel are worth your time to go after, because there are a couple of different endings that require ridiculous things of you to do. By that, I mean you literally have to sit there and wait for stuff to happen. So yeah, like I said, as far as engagement goes, this game kind of, all you really can do is make choices on where to go, and then those choices do occasionally become interesting. And the narrator is pretty funny, so the game has that going for it. It is a funny game. And every time you come to lounge, there's usually something different the narrator says.
Yes, this room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, gorgeous room. Thank goodness Stanley had taken this detour on his way to the meeting room. Life without having experienced this room was now too horrible even to consider.
That's probably because you have to go to this, you have to take this path, the door to the right, for a lot of different endings, because the game just branches off more and more as you take
Stanley took the first
wrong ways, I guess.
left.
I'm not going to take the door on the left. As you can see, there is just a bunch of different places you can
Stanley
go.
was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
And yeah, there's just the different environments. If the game looks interesting, you go ahead and get it. I think I've explained all I really want to explain without spoiling any endings. If you have any other questions about the game, of course, you can ask in the comments below. Let me know if this reminds you of any other games. Are there any other games with good branching narrative paths that are actually branching narrative paths? Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stan.